We are gathered here today to talk about my book, Persist, in praise of the creative spirit in a world gone mad with commerce. This is a group of artists who have been meeting now for how many years?
12.
12 years. Many members have been here, been coming for 12 years. And we meet on a monthly basis, and we talk about many of the issues that I write about in Persist. And these are wonderful people. If you want to take a look around the circle, these are wonderful artists, each of whom is a very reputable artist, has shows, exhibitions in town and elsewhere. And they come here monthly just to be a community, basically. And that's another of the themes of Persist, that community is an enormously important support for artists. So here we meet every month, and we have a good old talk.
Something
Yeah, it's better.
that interests me, it's a change of the subject, but not altogether. You had the opportunity to speak to undergraduates when you spoke at UCSB, and at the end of the lecture, the faculty members came up to you, as well as the students, and asked you, and said to you, this is just what these people need to hear. What do you think they meant by that?
Well, I think academia has got stuck in this track of churning out students with BFAs and MFAs with the expectation that they're going to be professional artists. And the fact of the matter is that the vast majority of these students are not going to be professional in any normally accepted sense of the word. That is, they're not going to go out and have a career as artists. The vast majority of them, if they stay on as artists, and many of them regrettably don't, if they are going to continue as artists, they have to find some other way to make a living, to survive. So I think in my presentation what the faculty said the students needed to hear was that they had permission to be something other than professional artists, quote unquote, to understand that the real source of art comes from within and really has nothing to do with the market. And the marketplace has become so much the focus of even students today. It is about me, this book, because I have been a relatively successful writer. I've been very fortunate in being able to publish quite a number of books. Published a couple of novels, a couple of books of poems, memoir. I wrote the book on David Hockney, and so on. So I've been relatively successful as a writer, and yet, make a living as a writer? No way. Couldn't possibly do it. Even after 40, 50 years of writing and publishing in national magazines and so on, to make a living is far beyond my reach. So I'm in a sense describing my own predicament in the book and sympathizing with a whole army of artists out there, and writers and musicians and dancers and actors. There is a huge number of people out there who know themselves to be creative people. That's how they define themselves in their own mind. And yet they have to do something else to put bread on the table. And yet, and this is really the point of Persist, it's absolutely necessary for them to find ways to persist as artists, because that's who they are.
Well, that's what your book does so successfully for me, is it's such a gentle reminder of what it is that really matters in what I've chosen to do with my life. It's so easy to just get lost in this fantasy, and you gently, and I really appreciate that, bring us back to a point where we can see what's really important.
That's great.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
How do, I was just curious, I don't know how you sort of set up the various lectures, like if you focus on one part of the book, or whether you talk about it in general, or whether they've read it or not, but I'm just curious how they receive the, you have a lot of sort of, I mean, there's a big part of the book that's a lot about meditation and working in art and stuff. And how's that received? How does that go down? Or do you even get into those areas?
I do, yeah. I usually start talking about art. I always try to find a different starting point because otherwise I bore myself.
Right.
And I want to do something that's new and fresh for me every time I speak. So it's important to do that. But normally speaking, the speaking engagements start with the predicament that we've been talking about. And they move into the way in which the mind can either make this worse for you and bring you to a dead halt as an artist, or work positively for you and create that space where you can be an artist. And this is where meditation comes in. And I usually talk about meditation. I usually make a point that I'm not talking about Buddhism, I'm not preaching Buddhism, that I'm talking about it as a practice.
Right.
As a practice which is a perfect model and metaphor for the practice of the artist.
Right, good.
And how's it received?
Very well. My talks have been received just wonderfully well. I mean, I get great questions and great comments afterwards. So it's become a whole new medium for me. I've spent my life sitting behind the typewriter back in those days, or the monitor of the computer, and it's a good way to hide. And what I've discovered since the publication of Persist, I so much believe in the ideas of the book, and talk out of such a lot of really deep personal experience that it becomes very easy for me to talk and very pleasurable for me to talk. And what I've discovered is that talking is a whole new medium. Writing is one medium, talking is another, both media with words, but they're entirely different.
Yeah.
Peter, when you first started this process, you spoke to the group about
Right.
your worry about speaking in public,
Yes.
a fear that many of us have.
Yeah.
And I'm curious how you relate to that now that you've got a number of readings under your belt there.
I really enjoy it. I mean, it's I look back on that fear. It was a genuine fear.
Yeah.
I look back on that and it doesn't seem real to me anymore. You know, one of the most useful things, I went to a meeting, one of my men's group meetings, shortly before the first one in the series of speaking engagements I've been doing. And I put out this fear in the Circle of Man. And what I've been doing was working like crazy. I've been writing down every word that I was going to say and trying to remember, how will I remember these wonderful things that I'm going to say when I have to say them? And the organization had specifically said, we don't want you to read. And very frequently in public speaking engagements in the past, I had written it all out and read it. So I was scared out of my mind at the notion of having to speak for an hour without being able to read what I was writing. So I was working away at it, and what I came to at that meeting was, I got to stop working. Got to stop working. I got to trust my voice.
Mm-hmm.
And they pointed out that I have this English accent.
No.
Which kind of gets me halfway there for totally undeserved reasons.
Right.
That makes me sound much more intelligent than I am. So I trusted that, and I trusted also that I just believed in what I had to say.